You said in the build-up this was going to be difficult with 11 men, but I imagine with 10 makes it a million times more difficult, doesn't it?
Better managers than me. Quite a lot of them around at the moment, I should imagine. Bigger, better clubs than Sheffield United would have found it difficult. You know, I think if they were playing one of the top sides, you plays your Man Cities, your Liverpools, your Arsenals. I think they'd have, you know, when you go down to 10, because of the way they play. So it's got a lot of admiration for the way they play and what they do. It's, you know, it's a real difficult task to try to come up with something. It's difficult when you lose players like we have done in the week, like we have done over the last couple of weeks. It's really difficult then. For us to have to be at our best tactically, we have to get it absolutely spot on. Timing's a press, selection-wise, you know, competition for places and your best players being available. You have to have all those things going for you. So all those things, you know, have not gone for us. And then, you know, I'm torn between this because, you know, I'm a competitor. I understand that, but I can't. You know, it was a very, very strong challenge. You know, and the game's moved on. So some people won't want the game to move on. Will expect physical contact, excessive force, or whatever you call it, winning the ball and you know, challenging in that way is deemed not acceptable. So you know, really, we've got no excuses, nowhere to hide. Referee gave a yellow card straight away, so he thought that it wasn't straight away. But obviously, when he went over to the monitor and it got slowed down, which, you know, never makes it good viewing. Which is always something I'm not sure that they should do, because I think, you know, there's loads of other challenges that'll look, not that, you know, there's a lot of those challenges today, Dan, but gets slowed down, gets looked at the monitor. He has somebody in his ear at Stockley Park saying, you know, potentially that's a red card. So, you know, after 12.5 minutes against one of the outstanding, well, it's not for a fight. They pass the ball more in the Premier League than any other team. And they keep possession, the second most possession-based team in the division. You know, they're going to do that to better teams than us with 11 on. They're certainly going to find it a little bit more easier to do that with 10.
Yeah, I think this was the third home game in a row when you've shipped 5, but because of everything we've said there about playing 80 minutes with 10 men, you have to put that into context a little bit, or can you put it into context?
Well, you can put it into context. Yeah. I can't. I'll have my own ideas. You know, I've got to say, you know, the players never turned it in. The cup game, you know, it's however you want to look at it. You know, the cup game, is that our first team? Is that our full it? Well, it ain't, is it? No. It's a cup game, and you get opened up late on, and you want to stay in the cup or whatever. And you possibly have the same view. The Villa game, as we talked about, those things can happen. Happened to Burnley yesterday. Yeah. So I don't know how much noise out, or will it be all about Arsenal and how brilliant they are, or will it be about Burnley? So we all know the narrative that goes on. And today, you know, I've got to say, game plan after that. It's things that we have to look at. There's too many times that we've gone from 1 to 2 pretty quickly. The goals are not great goals in the first half. You know, block on the goalkeeper, definitely. Should he show off a little bit more about it? Maybe he needs to. Maybe he needs to be a little bit stronger. We have an opportunity at the other end. Gus has to do better. He's done brilliant to get into that position, but we have to have somebody on the end of it. Then obviously our disallowed goal. Game plan at half time for me was to go deep. So I'm not apologising to anybody about our game plan. If we open up, we get absolutely murdered, and it looks like we've been murdered. We haven't been murdered today. We've stayed in the game, and it's amazing, because we're talking about periods of the games. Can we get through the first 15 minutes of the second half? We did. Wes has made a couple of saves, which I expected him to, but yeah, possession wise and everything was in front of us. I get that against 10 men, and then we talk about the next 15 minutes. We get to that. You've seen, if you've watched, we've seen the substitutes that we were waiting to get onto the pitch, to open it up, to go 2 at the top of the pitch, to go 4-3-2, and then see what happens in the last 15 minutes. Unfortunately, just on that 75-minute mark where we're just about to make that change, it's an own goal which is completely avoidable. It's a poor decision. We get into a situation now where he just clears it behind the goal. An own goal goes in. Poor defending. The game's gone. Then we understand that we're not going to go and score 3. The 4th goal goes in. Poor defending. We have to get tighter off a cross, and the 5th one is a ridiculous deflected shot. So, however way you want to dress it up, I'll let you dress it up. I think that's quite a tough scoreline against 10 men. And what they do is, obviously, they keep the ball, but they don't keep the ball and just stand on it. They keep it and they move it about, and they move it from side to side. Whether it's midfield, whether it's the 2 wingers who are outstanding players, as we all know, they move it from side to side to side. They move it about all over the pitch to try and find that pass where they can bounce it off and penetrate. So in that, from our point of view, there's a lot of hard work that needs to be done to keep our shape and keep a nice structure about us.
Yeah. Have you spoken to Mason yet? Has he said anything in the dressing room to
Yeah,
his
he's
teammates,
apologised to the boys, so he understands it, and he's an experienced pro. He's got it wrong. I want us to be competitive. I want us to be on the front foot. I want us to win tackles. You have to. We talked about it. We can't have a passive game. Football is not a passive game as well. It's a competitive game. It's not a non-contact sport, but we have to get that right. Mason has to get that right, and obviously it's a huge setback for us in the approach to the overall game.
Yeah, that was obviously a big moment. There was another big moment just before half time when you looked to have got back in it, and then after a long VAR process, when I think you looked at every reason to sort of disallow it.
I think I said the same thing. I'm just seeing if you can make up anything more that would obviously chalk the goal off. But yeah, what was that? Rules change now as well. If it's accidental or it's not deliberate and it comes off somebody,
something like that. Yeah.
Anel gets a little bit more on it. Ozzy takes a step back. It goes in the back of the net. Maybe it's a goal. So listen, small margins and things that, like I said to you regarding injuries and uncontrollable stuff, just little bits like that we feel as if not going for us. But we have to make those go for us by as you understand the narrative from me, sticking together, coming through this period. I've got to say, the attitude from a really disappointing evening against Aston Villa, the attitude of that towards the Luton game was one of fight, was one of sticking together, was one of working hard and trying to put it right in the next game, and we have to try and do that this week towards the Wolves game.
Just one on that process of that VAR decision. There was a lot of frustration in the crowd because nobody really knew what was happening. These are people who've paid good money to come and watch this game, and people at home watching on Sky will know what's going on. People who are actually in the ground will have had no idea. Is that something that needs to change? Because it doesn't seem.
I've got to say, Dan, listen, I've got enough problems to work things out for Sky and customers and punters.
I mean, for the game in general, because these are the punters that are in the ground. We need to look after those, don't we?
Of course, we always have to look after those in terms of how the game's managed and everything that goes with the game. Yeah, I get that.
It's actually about your decision with the goalkeepers. I think a lot of people expected Ivo to come back in. What was the thinking behind that? Not that there was anything wrong.
Well, listen, we thought off the back of last week, and obviously Ivo had a concussion, and Wes had been part of a really good performance. Everything he did was tidy. I thought it was the right thing to do. Gives Ivo another week to get ready. So this decision's made, tight decision that I made. So I'd like more tight decisions. I've not had enough of them. I don't like the tight decision having to play Will Asula when Cameron Archer, and this is nothing against Will as a young kid, when Cameron Archer plays that well last week. I don't like the decisions that we have to make when I lose Lowe and Reece Norrington-Davies for the season. So, these are things that are really hurting us and have hurt the club over like last two and a bit years. And certainly, it's getting continuity and consistency into selection, having difficult decisions to make, which I'm all over. If I can, if I've got options, people say, oh, you've got to I'll make those decisions, and if I've got as many options as possible, I'll be absolutely delighted. But obviously, you're seeing at the moment is, we're trying to chuck a team together to get a result.
What were the issues with Cameron and Max? What were the specific injuries?
Max, I don't know if you remember last week, I think it was like about 10 minutes to go. I think somebody had a shot, Max went to block it, went down and done his ankle ligaments, carried on. So it's an ankle that he's had surgery on, so I believe he's going to have surgery on it again, which will rule him out for the season. And obviously you saw what happened to Reece last week.
Yeah, and Cameron, sorry, what was the Cameron issue?
Sorry, Cameron, yeah, trained Thursday, trained Friday, felt okay, and calf tightened, tight calf and a real slight calf strain. So we had to change. Well, we changed the team. It was the last bit of training on Saturday morning where he's hobbled out of training. So disappointing for that point of view.
Just finally from me, was Ben Bertrand Diaz any closer this week to being involved?
No, he wasn't. So we'll assess him this week. Ollie Mack the same. You know, he had only 10 minutes in the locker, so he was one I wanted around and would have chucked on for the last 10 minutes. But we can't be. This is a difficult part of it. We're looking at players that can only get to a certain amount of minutes, having to make physical substitutions, and this is quite difficult. When you've only got so many slots and you've only got so many options to do that, and you're not making tactical decisions, you're making physical substitutions, which I think possibly is, from a manager's point of view, the worst aspect of it.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you.
Damn it.
Chris, when it got to 2-0, as you say, against such a good pass inside, a man down, is part of you kind of just waiting to see what sort of reaction you got? Because for the next 50 minutes, it was really good. But were you confident that was what you were going to get?
Yeah, I mean, I think we answered a lot of questions last week, Stu, and they always continue to answer questions. So I get that. I thought Scornham was a bit harsh on us today.
Yeah.
But listen, it's a ruthless, harsh division, and you have to take the punches when they come, especially when they're playing the likes of Brighton as well. So this is the things. But no, I was confident that we could get to, and I was delighted. We talked about getting to 75 minutes. Can you go deep into the game? I was one of the huge disappointing aspects of the Villa game was we talked about it at half time. This is us now. No goals coming in. By the way, take our medicine. And then we conceded after about 50 seconds start the second half. So, the shape of the team, bits and pieces that Wes had to do, nothing absolutely spectacular, no real unbelievable chances missed by Brighton. Yeah, possession controlled in front of us, I get it. Not really a threat for us going forward, I get it. But stay in the game to 75 minutes, 80 minutes, and then I'll take that decision when to open up, and we were talking about it. We talked about it in that period, and then a trend and a trait which is not good and not great, and I think statistically just takes the game away is the concession of quick fire goals, which has happened too many times now. It happened obviously against Villa, it happened today. 1 and 2 quick succession, 3 and 4 quick succession. It's something that we have to do so much better. And where does that come from? Does it come from experience? Does it come from leadership? We're trying to work out, but certainly from an attitude point of view, this is really hurting us in terms of that sort of trend, which is obviously there to be seen.
So how do you try and work on that? Because obviously attitude is something people are born with, but
yeah,
you can't just write it off. You have to work on it.
No, you can't. You get things slightly wrong, which we did. Goalkeeper gets boxed in for the goal, and Dunk wins an error at the back stick, and we're not on the second ball. It's 3 people in the middle of the goal. So it's an attitude, just basically at times just to keep the ball out of the back of the net, and we didn't then, because we recovered pretty well for that. I'm not so sure when the goals were scored. 20th.
I think it was about 50 minutes between number 2 and number 3.
Yeah. So in that period, like I said, no apologies to anybody. We needed to do that. Listen, some teams you can go 4-3-2, play 4 at the back and play 3 in midfield and 2 at the top of the pitch. We've done it before, and you can open up. And the games come with a little bit of a basketball, not with these. And like, you know, people I should imagine or might look at it as a defeatist attitude. It's a realistic attitude of where we are and where they are. Stay in the game to the last 10 minutes. You know, I went to watch Leicester last year against Man City, and I spoke to Brendan Rodgers afterwards, and he said exactly the same. They went negative for 75 minutes. You know, Jamie Vardy was on the edge of his box. They went negative for 75 minutes, stayed in the game because of the gulf as well. And there's not, you know, the gulf between Leicester City and Man City early on in last season was not a big gulf. So, you know, you have to be pragmatic as well as well as, you know, optimistic as well. So it's quite a difficult balance to get.
And in terms of that balance, I mean, it sounds a daft thing to say when you've just lost 5-0, but do you have to focus on that middle period and the positives from it going forward?
Yeah, we are. We have to listen. The top and bottom of it, the game and the result and the feel of the game and the scoreline got decided on one moment. For me, I would say 100% we wouldn't have got it done 5-0 today. And people might say, "Well, you did. You can't say that you didn't." The game was decided on that, for me. And if we didn't, I believe that. Listen, would we have won it? I'm not sat here and said, yeah, we would have comfortably won it, but we'd have posed more of a threat going forward, and we'd have had more stability at the back, and we'd have had more of the game without a shadow of a doubt. We knew that what we were coming up against and how they play. But as seen in the stats when we played them in the cup, you know, going the other way, you know, there was certainly an opportunity to work them, but it's quite difficult when, you know, when you're down to 10 men and you're trying to find a way back into the game.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Anyone else?
And how do you feel about Leicester? Are you angry with him, or are you sympathetic towards him after that?
I think maybe a little bit of both, somewhere in between may set it. You know, like I talked about it, it's a competitive sport and it's not a non-contact sport. So, but there has to be a balance, and I understand why the referee made that decision in the game as it is now.